After adopting a dog with a demonic and human mind, its owner gave it rigorous training and perfected it in every field, so that it could face any challenge boldly, and named it Baster. So the story begins. We are shown a boy named Charles who is on his way to school. There he meets his friend Remy, who tells him that he is earning a lot of money from his new job. But Charles is not interested in this because he has always been carefree. After school, Charles comes home and deliberately injures his hand while doing his homework. He does this so that he can learn to tolerate pain. Suddenly, his mother, Yvonne, arrives and invites him to dinner. The scene then cuts to Mrs. Marjorie DeVille, whose birthday is today, and she is visited by her children. They brought her a special gift for her birthday. When she opens the box, it is a white dog named Baxter, brought from an animal shelter. As soon as Baxter is freed from his leash, he runs wildly through the house and knocks over several vases. Later, when Margaret goes to the beauty salon, she tells her hairdresser that Baxter is behaving very strangely, but the hairdresser says it is all normal and they'll gradually get used to each other. When Margaret returns home, she is accompanied by her friend, Kejan, who gives her some advice. If she doesn't feel safe with the dog, she should call her daughter, Florence, and ask her to come and take the dog back to his old home. But the woman doesn't know that Baxter is a very intelligent dog. He can think like a human, not an animal. He observes people's ways and behavior very carefully. Baxter's greatest joy during the day is when he is let out into the garden. There, he runs freely and catches small wild mice. But this fun doesn't last long, as Margaret often calls him back in, even if it is a hassle. Gradually, Margaret and Baxter develop a good relationship. After a few days, the woman gives up on sending Baxter back. Then, Kejo, her friend, asks about Baxter. When he sees that the woman is still unsure about the dog, he offers to help. He says he can call Florence and tell her to take the dog back to the pound. Hearing this, Margaret becomes angry and tells Kejo to stop interfering in her life and leave her dog alone. As Bester is her new companion from now on, she doesn't want her friend to feel any more hurt. Kejo apologizes and says it was all a misunderstanding, but the woman ignores him and angrily leaves the table. Over time, Bester becomes increasingly confused by Margaret, as she never does anything special or interesting, nor does she give him any orders. Then, when Bester looks out the window, he sees his neighbors, Jean and Annie, who are moving into their new house. Bester is delighted to see them and is excited to meet them that evening. Meanwhile, Charles returns home and finds his mother having another party with her friends. He tries to quietly go to his room so that no one will notice, but Ewan sees him and tells him to come and greet the guests. Charles then goes to his room and is interested in looking at old photographs of World War II soldiers. Meanwhile, Bester continues to observe the daily lives of his new neighbors, Jean and Annie. But when he realizes that his mistress won't let him near the window, he thinks of attacking her the next day. But then comes the news that Margaret has had an accident. She has fallen down the stairs. Hearing this, her daughter Florence comes to her mother's house and prepares bandages for her injured leg. After a while, Margaret wakes up when the kennel owner helps her walk around the house. Margaret asks him why her dog is behaving so strangely and differently. Then he explains that perhaps Bester is acting this way because he feels abandoned. He probably thinks that after he was given to Marjorie, his previous owner no longer likes him and has abandoned him. This may seem like a betrayal to the dog. Just then, Florence arrives with sheets and tells her mother that he should sleep on the ground floor of the house for a few days because she can no longer climb stairs. Margaret spends many nights on the sofa bed in the downstairs room, while Bester continues to keep an eye on the neighboring couple outside the house. Meanwhile, Charles is watching a documentary on World War II on television and becomes interested in the bunkers built by the Soviets. He decides to build one himself. The next morning, he prints out a plan of a bunker and gets to work. Meanwhile, Kejo goes to the beauty salon and asks about Margaret, but the hairdresser says she doesn't know where she is because she hasn't had a haircut in 3 weeks. Kejo becomes worried and goes straight to Margaret's house, but as soon as Margaret sees him, she decides to hide from him and closes all the windows so Kejo can't see her. Several days pass, and Baxter realizes that Margaret has become increasingly lonely, and this is changing her thinking and behavior. She now blocks the stairs with wooden planks so that Baxter can be near her at all times. Then, when Kejo realizes that Margaret won't talk to him anymore, he returns home in despair and calls her. But Margaret ignores his call and goes to take a bath. Margaret now wants to get even closer to her pet dog Baxter. She forcibly pulls him into the bathtub, but Baxter becomes upset and runs from the room in fear. Then Margaret realizes her mistake. Sadly, she climbs the stairs and apologizes to Baster. She says she will make him a delicious breakfast and let him play in the garden for a while the next morning. Meanwhile, Kejo is still very worried. He thinks Margaret might be in danger, so he decides to go to her house again. When he arrives, he breaks down the door and enters the house. Seeing this, Baxter gets scared and runs away. The dog quickly runs towards the house of a young couple living nearby. They are having a romantic moment, but Baxter suddenly enters their bedroom. When Annie sees the dog, she calls her husband. Her husband goes to the window to see how the dog escaped from the house. At that very moment, he sees Kejo standing outside, shouting that Mrs. Margaret DeVille has met with an accident. She has fallen down the stairs and died. Annie then meets Florence. Florence says that she doesn't like pets, so she wants Annie to take care of Baxter. Hearing this, Baxter is overjoyed because he can now enjoy the sounds and smells of the garden with his new owner. Annie begins to treat him like her own son. A few days later, Annie throws a surprise party for her husband, Jean's birthday. At the party, she gives a strange but interesting performance with Baxter. After the dance performance, she approaches her husband and tells him that she is pregnant. Jean is overjoyed to hear this. Meanwhile, Charles continues to improve his bunker plan. Once he has gathered all the necessary supplies, he heads to the junkyard. Once there, he quickly begins digging a large hole. As time passes, the bunker he has built gradually grows larger and larger. He realizes that his mistress is slowly forgetting him because she is now focused on her unborn child. So Baster decides to go to Jean, who also works with the soil in the garden, just like he likes. But when Annie gives birth to a baby, Baster is locked in the garage. This angers him as he feels betrayed by his owners once again. Then one day, Jean frees him again so he can meet their son. When Baster sees the baby, he is terrified because he doesn't understand why humans love their children so much. He finds it strange that the baby has no spiky hair and is so weak. Jean doesn't want Baster to stay locked in the garage, so he brings him out and tells him to be nice to the baby so they can all live happily together in the garden. But Baster doesn't like the baby and begins plotting to get rid of him. But this isn't easy, as the child is always under someone's watch. So, Baster devises a cunning plan. He will wait until his parents stop watching him, then push him into the swimming pool to kill him, and then bark loudly calling for help, as if an accident has occurred. Meanwhile, at the junkyard police station, Charles is inspecting the control room he built. He sees that the turbines and his own electrical system are working properly. Seeing everything is in order, he goes to the hatch, from where he can quietly monitor the area outside. Meanwhile, in the city cemetery, Kejo goes to Margaret's grave. He places a bouquet of flowers there. Then Margaret's spirit appears and begins speaking to Kejo. The sage says it is time for his friend to rest, as young people should let their lives and the world take their own course. They should be allowed to face their own sorrows, pains, and troubles. Kejo listens carefully to this message from Margaret's spirit and accepts it. He silently bows to Margaret's grave and dies on his way home. Meanwhile, Charles's father stops him and tells him that his birthday is coming, so he should quickly choose a gift. But Charles doesn't know what to choose. He goes to his room and sees pictures of famous people standing with their pets. Only then does he understand what he wants for his birthday. The next day, Baxter's new family gathers again in the backyard. Then Baxter sees that his master has moved away from the garden, so he immediately rushes to the child to push him into the pool. But then something moves, and the animal's movements alert Jean and Annie. Jean rescues the child just in time, foiling Baxter's plan. Worried for their son's safety, Jean and Annie decide they must find a new home for the dog. They create an adoption pamphlet, which quickly catches Charles's attention. A few days later, Charles visits the couple's home and takes Baxter home. Charles and Baxter become good friends. Charles strives to make his new dog even stronger and more dangerous. So, he begins teaching Baxter to attack Old Warn, outdolls and runs through the streets with his new owner. He feels he has finally found the person he has always been looking for, and now he will be happy with him. Over time, Charles improves Baxter, and the dog readily obeys every command. While riding the school bus, Charles continues collecting war photographs. But then, a girl named Eva comes and sits next to him. Eva likes Charles and wants to get closer to him. But when she realizes that Charles isn't paying any attention to her, she becomes disappointed and returns home. Just then, Charles sees a car approaching the prison yard and goes out to see what is going on. As he approaches, he discovers that Baxter is under the truck, which enrages the driver. When Charles manages to calm Baxter, the man tells him not to let his dog loose. Otherwise, he'll face serious consequences in the future. There could be trouble. Then, the boy sees Eva in the same car. Eva reveals that the man is actually her father, who has come to pick up some groceries nearby. As soon as Eva's father returns, Eva quickly tells Charles that she'll take her dog for a walk later so she can come to meet him discreetly at midnight. When Eva's father returns home, he sees that Eva is wearing his wife's clothes. This enrages him, and he asks where she is going. Eva tries to hide her true intentions, saying she is just taking her dog for a walk. But her father doesn't believe her. In a fit of rage, he breaks Eva's radio. This enrages Eva, and she storms out of the house. She then arrives at the junkyard police station, while Charles realizes she is coming. So he locks Baxter inside the bunker, so that the dog doesn't interfere with their meeting, as they want to spend some quality time together during their conversation. Eva reveals that she wants to leave town and go to her mother, because she can no longer tolerate living with her father. She says that her father always puts her down and his words are insulting. Then, Baxter, locked in the bunker, begins barking incessantly. When Eva asks Charles why he locked the dog, he says he just wanted to keep it from getting disturbed. But Eva doesn't listen and goes herself to free Baxter. Baxter immediately tries to get along with Eva and befriend her, but he soon realizes that Charles isn't the same anymore, so he tries to win her love and trust again. But when he repeatedly approaches Charles, Charles becomes enraged, kicks him, and tells him to go away. Just then, a strange dog appears on the street near the junkyard. Seeing Baxter attacks him to protect his territory, and a fight ensues. When Charles realizes this, he rushes to separate them, but as soon as he sees Baxter winning, he stops and lets him continue attacking his opponent. Seeing how powerful his dog is, Charles now treats him with more respect and thinks he can use Baxter as a fighting machine. The next morning, during the school bus ride, Eva approaches Charles and tells him that Baxter has fathered children with her dog. But her father doesn't want to care for so many animals, so they order Eva to quickly get rid of the puppies before they do anything to themselves. Eva and Charles then begin caring for them. Charles then suggests that he can adopt them because he has special plans for spending the next day with the children. Later, while Charles is inspecting the area around his bunker, he meets a boy named Remy, who earns money by collecting cans. Remy is searching through the debris for recyclable items. Charles then sees him descend into a pit and then arrives himself, ordering Baxter to attack Remy. He also removes the ladder so that Remy cannot get out. A frightened Remy begs Charles to let him go, but Charles ignores him and orders Baxter to kill Remy once and for all. However, Baxter understands that Charles has misunderstood the situation. He usually doesn't harm anyone without reason, so he lets Remy go and stands by. Charles becomes furious that his dog is disobeying him. He locks Baxter in his garage and beats him repeatedly. He kills him to punish him. As time passes, Charles becomes increasingly strange and dangerous. After observing the puppies for some time, he believes that these little ones have weakened Baxter. Therefore, he decides that they must be removed. Hearing this, Baxter becomes deeply saddened and distraught. His natural instincts kick in, and he sets out to find his missing puppies, following their scent. While searching, he also finds the scent of nearby puppies. When he finally sees the puppies' bodies in the pit, he becomes enraged, realizing that Charles killed and dumped them there. Charles arrives at the scene at the same time. He is enraged that Baxter disobeyed him, so he tries to attack him. He throws various objects at the animal, scaring Baxter into fleeing. But the problem was, Baxter was trapped in the junk and debris, so he had no choice. He had to stay put and wait until Charles had completely destroyed him. Then Charles picks up a large iron drum and tries to throw it at Baxter, but it is too heavy, so he loses his balance and slips down the slope directly in front of Baxter. Baxter thinks this is the perfect opportunity for revenge. He is about to attack Charles, but then he remembers his master's voice. He is unable to do anything when he hears the commands he was taught during training and is forced to obey them. So he sits on the ground, completely still, unmoved. But Charles was furious. He picked up an iron rod from the rubble and killed Baxter. He stabbed the dog's body several times. Some time later, Michelle and Eva came looking for Charles in the barn. They were shocked to see Charles attacking Baxter's lifeless body. Michel quickly rushed to Charles's side, but Charles said Bester was about to kill him. So he did it to save himself. Hearing this, Michel calmed him down and said everything would be fine. He then hugged his son and, along with Eva, took Charles home. Some time passes, and Charles gradually grows more and more attached to his neighbor couple. He wants them to adopt him so he can live with them forever, so he plans a fake accident. His intention is to set his house on fire, killing his parents, and move in with his neighbors. So, how did you like this film? Let us know in the comments below.